You didn't pack anything dangerous. You didn't ignore the rules. You packed the same everyday items you've carried through airports for years, and yet in 2026, TSA stops you. At the checkpoint, an officer quietly pulls something from your bag, an item that passed security dozens of times before. There's no announcement, no explanation beyond a short sentence. This is no longer allowed. The item is confiscated, and you're told to move on. Most travelers believe TSA bans come with clear warnings. They don't. In 2026, several everyday items were quietly reclassified, restricted, or enforced differently, especially items commonly carried by older passengers. The mistake isn't bringing prohibited items. The mistake is assuming the system still works the way it used to. In this video, you'll learn 7 everyday items TSA quietly banned or restricted in 2026, why seniors are affected more than anyone else, and how travelers who understand the system avoid delays, confiscations, and missed flights without breaking a single rule. To understand why these bans catch so many people off guard in 2026, you need to understand how TSA actually updates its rules. TSA doesn't operate like a consumer-facing agency. Most changes don't come through press conferences or email alerts. They happen through risk reclassification, internal enforcement memos, and quiet updates to screening protocols. The rules technically exist, but they're written for officers, not passengers. This creates a system where enforcement changes first and explanations come later, if they come at all. For the airport, silence is efficient. If every restriction were clearly explained at the checkpoint, screening would slow down. For airlines, confusion isn't a problem either. Delays caused by security don't count as airline responsibility, even when passengers miss connections or boarding windows. And for older travelers, the system is especially unforgiving. You're more likely to carry medical items, battery-powered devices, specialty liquids, or personal tools that don't look suspicious, but trigger secondary screening under newer rules. TSA will not proactively warn you. Assistance and clarification are request-based. If you don't ask the right question at the right moment, nothing is explained. So when an item is confiscated, it feels personal. But it isn't. It's the system working exactly as designed, efficiently, quietly, and without obligation to make sure you were informed. Number 1. Medical liquids. Over 3.4 Oz, even when they're allowed. On paper, medical liquids have always been exempt from the standard 3.4-ounce rule, and technically, that hasn't changed in 2026. What changed is how those liquids are classified and questioned at the checkpoint. Under updated screening protocols, many liquid medications, supplements, gels, and topical treatments are now treated as verification-required items. That means TSA officers are instructed to stop, inspect, and in some cases deny carry-on transport if the liquid cannot be clearly identified or justified on the spot. For older travelers, this is where problems start. You may be carrying liquid pain relief, digestive medicine, eye drops, or prescribed topical treatments you've flown with for years. But in 2026, officers are no longer expected to assume medical necessity. They are expected to verify it, quickly. And TSA does not explain this unless you ask. If the bottle is unlabeled, repackaged, or looks similar to cosmetic products, it may be confiscated, even if it's legal. Not because it's banned outright, but because the system now prioritizes screening speed over clarification. Travelers who understand the system do something different. They declare medical liquids before the bag goes through the scanner. They keep items clearly labeled. And when questioned, they don't argue legality. They state necessity using the language officers are trained to recognize. Those who don't, they lose the item, lose time, and walk away thinking TSA changed the rules overnight. They didn't. The rules changed quietly, and only reward passengers who know how to activate them. Number 2, spare lithium batteries, no longer neutral items. In 2026, for years, spare lithium batteries were treated as a minor inconvenience at security. As long as they were in your carry-on, most passengers never gave them a second thought. That changed in 2026. TSA didn't suddenly ban spare batteries. What changed was their risk classification. Under updated screening guidance, loose lithium batteries, especially those not clearly paired with a specific device, are now treated as standalone risk items. For older travelers, this creates a quiet trap. You're more likely to carry spare hearing aid batteries, medical device batteries, flashlight batteries, or backup phone chargers, just in case. Individually, They look harmless. Together, they often trigger secondary screening. And here's the part most passengers never hear. If an officer cannot immediately identify the battery type, watt-hour rating, or intended use, the default action is removal, not explanation. TSA officers are not required to educate you on battery specs at the checkpoint. Their job is to keep the line moving. Travelers who understand the system prepare differently. They keep spare batteries in original packaging or clearly labeled cases. They separate medical device batteries from general electronics. And when stopped, they explain what device the battery supports, not whether it's allowed. Passengers who don't understand the shift lose batteries, lose time, and sometimes miss boarding, all while believing they followed the rules. They did. They just didn't follow the new version of them. Number 3, personal tools that used to be fine, now treated as dual use. Items. Most passengers assume TSA only worries about obvious weapons, knives, scissors, sharp objects. That assumption is outdated. In 2026, many small personal tools, items that lived in carry-ons for years without issue, are now screened under a dual-use risk category. These are objects that aren't weapons by design, but could be used as leverage tools under certain conditions. For older travelers, this hits unexpectedly hard. You're more likely to carry compact tools for daily needs, small screwdrivers for hearing aids, foldable nail tools, travel-sized multi-tools, or assistive grips. None of these look threatening. But under newer screening logic, appearance matters less than potential function. Here's what changed. TSA officers are now instructed to evaluate shape, density, and mechanical leverage, not just blade length. If a tool appears capable of prying, puncturing, or striking, even unintentionally, it may be flagged. And once flagged, the outcome is rarely negotiable. If the item isn't clearly classified on the public allowed list, the officer doesn't need to justify confiscation. The system assumes risk first, explanation later. Travelers who understand this don't argue intent. They avoid carrying unclassified tools entirely, or they pack them in checked luggage. When questioned, they don't say, "I've flown with this before." That history no longer matters. Passengers who rely on past experience lose tools, lose time, and sometimes lose boarding priority, all without ever being told what rule they violated, because in 2026, the rule isn't written for passengers, it's written for enforcement. Number 4, large powdered substances, quietly reclassified, aggressively screened. Most passengers associate TSA powder screening with rare, extreme cases, something unusual, something suspicious. That's no longer how the system works in 2026. Large quantities of everyday powders, protein supplements, medical nutrition powders, powdered medications, even baby or senior nutrition mixes, are now routinely flagged for advanced screening when carried in the cabin. And here's the key detail most travelers miss. The issue isn't what the powder is. It's how much of it you're carrying and how clearly it can be identified. For older travelers, this becomes a recurring problem. You're more likely to carry powdered supplements for digestion, joint health, meal replacement, or medically recommended nutrition. These items are legal. They're common. And yet, once they exceed a certain volume or appear unlabeled or repackaged, they slow everything down. In 2026, TSA officers are trained to treat unidentified powders as verification risks, not personal items. That means swabbing, secondary screening, and in some cases, removal, if the substance can't be quickly cleared. And TSA does not explain this up front. If screening takes too long, the pressure shifts to you, not the system. Missed boarding isn't their problem. Confiscation becomes the fastest solution. Travelers who understand the system do two things differently. They keep powders in original packaging, and they proactively separate them for inspection before the bag is scanned. Those who don't lose time, draw attention, and walk away confused, convinced TSA randomly targeted them. It wasn't random. It was predictable. Number 5, smart medical devices and wearables, flagged for what they do, not what they are. Many older travelers rely on smart medical devices every day. Glucose monitors, wearable health trackers, portable blood pressure cuffs, sleep apnea accessories, or sensor-based medication reminders. For years, these passed through security with little attention. In 2026, that assumption breaks down. What changed isn't the legality of medical devices. It's how TSA evaluates electronics with sensors, wireless transmitters, or internal batteries. Devices that collect data, transmit signals, or contain dense components are now more likely to trigger manual inspection, even when worn on the body. And here's where seniors are quietly disadvantaged. You're more likely to wear the device continuously. You assume removing it is risky or unnecessary. TSA officers, however, are trained to evaluate internal structure, not medical importance. If a device can't be quickly identified through imaging, screening pauses. TSA will not automatically tell you what to do. If you don't proactively inform the officer that you're wearing or carrying a medical device, the system treats it like any other unknown electronic. That often leads to secondary screening, device handling, or requests you're not prepared for. Travelers who understand the system handle this differently. They notify officers before screening begins. They ask for visual inspection instead of removal, and they describe the device by function, not by brand name or personal need. Passengers who don't understand this lose time, lose privacy, and sometimes risk device damage, all without ever hearing the words "new rule." Because again, the rule isn't announced, it's enforced. Number 6. Repacked toiletries and liquids, legal items that quietly become unverifiable. Most passengers think TSA cares only about size limits. Under 3.4 ounces, you're fine. In 2026, that assumption fails more often than people expect. What changed isn't the liquid rule itself. It's the verification standard. When toiletries, creams, gels, or liquids are repacked into unmarked containers, TSA officers are now instructed to treat them as unverifiable substances, even if the quantity is clearly within limits. This disproportionately affects older travelers. You're more likely to decant products into easier-to-open bottles, arthritis-friendly containers, reused travel bottles, medication-adjacent creams or gels without labels. All of this is practical, and all of it raises flags. At the scanner, officers don't judge intent. They judge identifiability. If they can't quickly determine what a liquid is, the system favors removal over delay, and TSA is not required to test every small bottle. Confiscation is faster. Here's the quiet trap. When an officer says, "We can't verify this," arguing that it's just lotion doesn't help. Past experience doesn't matter. The rule isn't about danger, it's about speed and certainty. Travelers who understand the system do something simple. They keep original labels when possible. They group medical and personal liquids separately. And they expect questions when containers look improvised. Those who don't watch legal items disappear and assume TSA is being arbitrary. It isn't. It's following a system designed to reward clarity, not convenience. Number 7. Printed documents, envelopes, and harmless paper, flagged as density anomalies. Most passengers never think twice about paper. Boarding passes, medical letters, insurance documents, travel itineraries, sometimes all stacked neatly in a thick envelope or folder. In 2026, that habit quietly causes problems. What changed isn't that documents are banned. It's how dense paper stacks are interpreted by modern scanners. When paper is layered tightly, especially inside envelopes, folders, or zipped pouches, it can appear as a solid mass with unclear internal structure, and that triggers inspection. Older travelers are affected more than anyone else. You're more likely to travel with printed confirmations, medical paperwork, prescriptions, or emergency contacts, often kept together for peace of mind. To the system, however, that organization looks like unidentified density. When flagged, officers may ask to separate, open, or remove documents. If time is tight, the pressure is on you, not them. And if documents are mixed with liquids, electronics, or powders, screening escalates quickly. TSA does not explain this behavior change. From their perspective, paper isn't harmless or suspicious. It's simply opaque, and opaque items slow the line. Travelers who understand the system adjust quietly. They spread documents loosely in a tray. They avoid thick envelopes, and they separate paperwork from electronics and liquids before screening. Passengers who don't understand the shift lose time, feel embarrassed, and wonder why something so ordinary suddenly became a problem. It wasn't the paper. It was how the system reads it now. 2 passengers, same age, same flight, same destination. Both arrive at the airport early. Both believe they followed the rules. The first passenger packs the way they always have. medical liquids mixed with toiletries, spare batteries loose in a pocket, documents stacked tightly in a folder. Nothing illegal, just familiar. At security, the bag is flagged. Secondary screening begins. Items are removed for verification. A liquid is confiscated. Batteries are questioned. Documents are unpacked. 10 minutes turn into 20. Boarding starts while the passenger is still at the checkpoint. No rule was broken. But the system doesn't reward familiarity. It rewards alignment. The second passenger carries nearly the same items, but understands how enforcement works in 2026. Medical liquids are declared before screening. Batteries are clearly paired with devices. Documents are separated loosely in a tray. Nothing looks ambiguous to the scanner. That passenger walks through. Same rights, same age, completely different outcomes. The difference isn't luck. It's not confidence. It's not arguing with officers. It's knowing which everyday items now trigger verification and adjusting before the system notices you. For older travelers, this gap is costly, not just in lost items, but in stress, embarrassment, missed boarding windows, and the quiet feeling that the airport isn't built for you anymore. It is, but only if you understand how it actually works now. Understanding the rules isn't enough in 2026. You have to know how to activate them. At TSA, assistance and clarification are not automatic. They are request-based. That means the timing and wording of your request matter more than your age, your ticket, or how often you fly. Before your bag goes on the belt, identify anything that could trigger verification: medical liquids, powders, batteries, or devices. Then speak up early, calmly, and clearly. You don't ask, "Is this allowed?" That invites delay. You say, "I'm declaring a medical item for screening." That phrase tells the officer you understand the process. It shifts the interaction from suspicion to procedure. If you're wearing or carrying a medical device, don't wait to be stopped. Say, "I'm wearing a medical device. I'd like a visual inspection." This signals awareness and often prevents unnecessary handling. For batteries or electronics, avoid explanations about personal need. Say, "These batteries are for this device." Then point. Keep it simple. If an item is questioned and time is tight, you can ask, respectfully, for options. Can this be checked instead of discarded? Not every airport will allow it, but asking early creates choices. The biggest mistake older travelers make is staying silent, hoping to avoid attention. Silence doesn't protect you. Clarity does. These rules aren't new because TSA suddenly became stricter. They're new because the system changed, quietly. And for older travelers, the cost of not noticing that change is higher than ever. This isn't about special treatment. It's about understanding rules that already exist, but aren't explained unless you know how to ask. If this video helped you see the airport differently, share it with someone you travel with: a spouse, a sibling, a friend who still packs the way they did 10 years ago. And if you want to keep flying calmly, confidently, and informed, subscribe to the channel, because the system isn't going to slow down for you. But once you understand it, you don't need it to.